Yes, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Right now I'm a little bit confused about what is God, what is light, what is Ramana, what is Arunachala, what is Jesus, what is Buddha, what is truth. I have
Who else?
Krishna. Yes, I really struggle with this right now to what to whom or to what I open my heart or open me, you know.
Right, with all this offer, it's getting confusing. Is there something you feel naturally, specially attracted? Okay, let me ask the question different. Is there a certain way you are practicing?
I started doing self-inquiry. Who am I?
Who am I?
Yes. This works actually pretty good until today.
Until today.
Oh shit! The self can die. Yes, it can die. Oh no! There is ego inside this dream.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused right now, and actually, to come back to your first question, it was like I feel very. I have this feeling of light, you know, just
Light.
pure light.
Right. Then by all means, pick that. You have that feeling of pure light, and you sort of, that is inspiring for you, then you can, the whole list you called, you can see them as manifestation of that pure light. But you yourself also are a manifestation of that. That what you are looking for, what you are wondering, what is it that I can somehow surrender to? What is it that I can worship? Then see yourself as pure light. That what you are looking for is that which makes your question possible. That what you are looking for is that which makes you tick. Now, that because of which you can breathe, because of which you can think, because of which you can feel, because of which any experience is possible. You don't have to look for God somewhere up there, far away. It is that living quality now. It's the expression of the divine. So focus on that and go that along with that back to its source. But if that inspires you, you can very well conceive of it as pure light. If that really touches you, you don't need to invent any other God. You can have respect for all those who worship, you can respect for the divine manifestations, and yet you don't have to rack your brain and think, maybe I should go this way, maybe I should go that way. It doesn't matter at all how we are. It's always just a question of releasing our obsession from our personal level, from our personal concerns, from the stuff that we are busy with all the time, and bring it to that which makes it possible. And then if you call that God or you call that Jesus or whatever, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, you can read Ramana and get inspiration, fine, but then that doesn't mean you have to change your way of going about it. Finally, everyone has to somehow create their own yoga on the way. We can get inspired here and there, but then finally you do that which is the most natural for you. And if you hold on to pure light, you are very well informed. Basically, spirituality is totally easy. But then we have made it complicated. There are all those different paths, all those different techniques, all those different religions. And then one can get quite confused about it. But when you practice something, you pick up something and you practice, it's not that you have to, the point is not that you pick up a technique and then you train yourself and you get better and better and get an adept in that technique and finally it leads you somewhere. All the practices, they are just crutches for the mind to make it easier to turn the attention back on itself. But it's not so easy if you are restless, if our attention is scattered all over the place, then abstractly, simply to let that go and simply be. So it's made easier by picking up something to hold on to. Something like the question, who am I? It's not a question that we ask and ask and ask and finally we get it. There's nothing to get. It's just one way to help to detach the attention from our obsessions, where we are stuck, from our concerns. When the mind goes, who is thinking? Who am I? I. Who am I? I. And then there remains just silence. That simple I am. That sense of presence. And all the different techniques are just for that, to help us to catch the attention, to detach from our fixation and bring it back to that sense of presence. That's the whole of it. Easy. But it has to be done. As long as the attention has the tendency, out of habit, to always get sucked into things, then we don't get around to make at least that little effort to have a good look at ourselves, see what's going on, observe what's going on in the mind, and learn to detach from that and bring it back to that which makes the experience possible. That sense of presence that is first, prior to any experience, prior to any thought, prior to any feeling. It's always there, but most of the time totally overlooked. And the practice just helps us to bring the attention back to that. But that's the point of it. It's not that we have to create something, that we have to achieve something new. It's just a means to come back to the source. And then consciousness left in peace will start to unfold all by itself, effortlessly. The experience of it will start to unfold and unfold, and there's no limit to that, there's no end to that. It just goes on.
So I have to say my pattern in general is I have to do this, I have to do that, and I'm quite actually sick of doing anything, so even any technique to, so I'm fed up with any techniques. So, because that feeds again my ego pattern, I have to, so I don't want to do anything anymore.
If you can, not to do anything, fine. But most of the time, we have no idea how much we are doing all the time. What a tremendous effort we are investing in just creating all our stories. But the tremendous effort we are spending just to make ourselves miserable. And as long as that goes on, you don't get around at least to make the effort to recognize that and somehow find a way to let go of that. It's not that you have to make an effort and break through something. It's simply the effort is to become aware what a tremendous effort we are anyhow making all the time, unnecessarily, and learn not to do that anymore. So if you just can be at ease, at peace, consciously conscious in the present, you don't have to do anything. But you can also choose a very simple help that you just repeat whenever you feel you are disconnected. And no matter what you are doing, what technique you are picking up, most of the time in the beginning it feels, oh, right, it's doing something, getting somewhere. After some time, it becomes commonplace, and then the mind comes and, it's getting boring, just over and over. It's also a trick of the personality not to go deeper. It's bound to come that sooner or later that feeling comes, why should I do this? It feels so silly just to repeat something over and over. And yet it makes sense, not that you mechanically, silly, just repeat something on and on and on and on, but that you somehow still use that as a help to focus. And from that focus, all you need to do is let go, relax, and you're right there. The simplest practices, according to my experience, are the most powerful ones. The difficulty with simple practices is simply that the mind will very quickly think, when there are not the big things happening, the mind will very quickly think, a simple thing like this, of course, cannot do anything. And then we'll look for more complications. But if you could pick up a simple thing like just start breathing consciously. If you can do that, you need not do anything else. It brings you right to the present, to the timelessness of the now. It's happening now. It's not a moment before, a moment after you think about. If you have that capacity of just breathing consciously, immediately you're right in touch with that. All you have to learn to do more is relax. Let go. That's what the whole detachment thing is about. The tradition talks a lot about detach, and then it has become a bit the moral thing. That, it's bad if you are attached to this, if you are attached to that, but actually detachment is just learning to let go, learning to relax. If you relax, things come, things go, you're fine with it. It is here, it is now, what we are looking, that present, that timelessness of the present. The present is not a point in time, because in time it's always the past. You put the finger on the present, it's gone. It's never present. But there is that sense of presence. If you bring your attention to that sense of presence, you're stepping out of time. Here now is timeless. Here now is all that fulfillment that we are looking for. Here now is the happiness we are looking for. But it's not enough to believe that. As long as the attention is always dragged away from that, we will invariably create the stories that make us suffer again. And if you are fed up with suffering, there's no other way but to let those stories go and learn to dive with your attention in that ground, in that bubbling source of existence, in that beauty, in that creativity of existence, that which makes you conscious now. The little kids, they are closer to that. But then, usually while growing up, they are continuously assaulted by all the ideas that all the people have around, and gradually forced to also function like that. We all had it when we were born. There may have been a baggage that we have brought along, but the experience of a kid is still that connection with that source, that it's more like bubbling bursts how they are functioning than thinking about things. But then gradually, as we are developing the intellect and always being told how to function, what to do, what not to do, then we start to create our stories for ourselves, and gradually it's getting buried deeper and deeper and deeper. It's never absent. But if we are not consciously learning to turn the attention back to that, we're never aware that it's there. And then, once we have created that self-image, the me, the person I think I am, and its relation to all the rest of existence, then everything of our life force is fed into it and lost into it. Once we have created that bubble, then it's going round and round and round and round in that all the time. Yes?
Are the animals also closer to this?
It's function a bit differently, but of course they are not having all our brain troubles.
How is it that the cow Lakshmi is enlightened and other animals are not enlightened? Can you say something to this?
Right, that was a speciality of Ramana Maharshi. And even the cow Lakshmi or the dog or the crow, he didn't say they were enlightened during their lifetime, sondern he helped them to lead them right back to the source when they left their animal form. Like, a dog doesn't have our problems. He has thoughts, has feelings, but they are instinctive. And he's not consciously conscious, but is instinctively conscious. So the dog consciousness is a certain level. There are dogs more intelligent, there are dogs less intelligent, but it's somewhat in that. And even Jackie, who is supposed to have gotten samadhi at the end, he still was a dog during his lifetime. Of course, in a way they are closer, but they cannot break out of that level of consciousness. Now we have something extra. We cannot simply be consciously, instinctively conscious, but we can be conscious of being conscious. And that gives us two possibilities. That self-reflection of consciousness, if we create a self-image, a person, and feeling separate from the whole rest of existence, and with that possibility of being conscious, but feed it all in that personality, then we are having the possibility to create a hell for us in our life like a dog is not capable of doing. We can create all our concerns, all our sorrows. What do they think about me? Am I going to be successful? What are they talking about me? All the stuff that people are turning around. A dog is not doing that. He may get very angry. Neighbor dog comes and but then the dog goes and then it's gone. He's not going and sit in his corner and thinks, this bastard, and the next time he comes, I'm going to do this and that to him. But we are doing that. Somebody insults and the moment goes, and instead of letting it go, then there we are sitting and but that self-reflection has its promise. Consciousness in a human form has a potential, it's simply staggering. Just that possibility, not to be simply instinctively conscious, but to have the possibility to bring the attention back to that, to be consciously conscious, to be consciously alive, consciously here now. If we learn to get rooted like this, then consciousness will start to unfold. And not like the dog who is bound to be in his dog level consciousness for the whole of his life. Consciousness in a human form, if left at peace, will start to unfold and there's no limit to it. So it's a pity to waste that chance to go through a life and being always busy with petty little concerns instead of bringing it back to the beauty of existence and let the experience of that unfold. So Ramana said he gave samadhi to a cow and a dog and a crow and I don't know whether any other animal, but not in their animal form, when they left their animal form. It's already getting hotter, so you better come up with some interesting questions, otherwise everybody goes to sleep.
I have a question. So there's been a lot of, in the last couple of years, or at least from what I'm aware, that there's a lot of talk and movement on this rise of the feminine, whether it's from Me Too, or I don't know if you know about that, or the marches and all that. And then it seems to me that in this spiritual side, there's also a lot of talk about the feminine path, or the goddess path. What is it that you know about it? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Have you heard Bekside what she was talking about? She says in the last 2 years there was a rise, actually more than 2 years.
Right.
There was quite a rise of the feminine aspect, that suddenly the goddess is more important also. The feminine aspect of existence. As the world has been formed very much patriarchal. All the 3 Semitic religions are totally. It's God, Father, punishing. And now the mother comes more slowly to the foreground. I mean, that essential existence is neither female nor male, but it's male and female, and it's way beyond all this. So actually it's a great development that because it was very one-sided developed, which also resulted in a very one-sided development of society. So that the other aspect of it is getting more developed, to become aware all that stuff between better or worse or more important or less important between female or male is complete human nonsense. There is no such thing. And so it's a great development that the feminine aspect is more considered now. It's not that now the feminine aspect has to take over and show them and get them the other side. But it's good that it gets more important in order to become aware. Don't make such a fuss about it. For me, from what I learned, when I came to Amma, I was already quite firmly on that Advaita path, and so it was very clear for me that impersonal beingness, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely the highest, the pinnacle, and all else is way below that. Even although for a few years I had been very much interested in Sri Ramakrishna, and he kept on repeating to the question, but God is personal, God is impersonal, it's both. But then becoming a Vedantin, becoming an Advaitin, I thought, yeah, he's simply saying like this so that the spiritual babies also have something. It was sheer intellectual arrogance. He really meant every word of it, what he said. And then at a certain point, to my total surprise, in my experience, I was in contact with some being, with a being. And first, I thought it's my guru making somehow contact like this. And then that made it clear, okay, you can call that Amma, but it's not that woman you are projecting out there, but it's that Amma who is running the whole show. And once that contact started, it never ceased again. And first, in the first period, of course, I was asking a million questions, all the stuff that has been pending, and certain things were revealed, certain things were not revealed. I didn't have any control of it. Gradually the questions disappeared, and there was just out of the communication became a communion that is there. But since that, I was clear that all that talk, this one is higher, this one is lower, it's all nonsense. And for me it was the Divine Mother, since that. You can call that Father in Heaven, you can call it the Divine Mother. It's male, it's female, it's abstract, it's impersonal, it's personal, it's beyond anything you can possibly imagine. And it's not that one aspect is higher than another aspect. All are equally aspects of that totally incomprehensible divinity that is at the base of this whole show. So since the female aspect has been neglected for a long time, it's very a healthy development that this is developing more now. But as I said, not in order to overcome the male aspect and after that reign in this world, but simply to get rid of that wrong notion that somehow one part of it, one aspect of it is more important than the other.
Yes, I'm right. You say that to be in the present and me, it's mean also not to do, undoing, not to do something. But at the same case, the same time, our actions arise, and sometimes that it's action that I like or dislike, and how can I check and what the how can I check, is it this action from the pure nature, from the resources, or this is from the mind? That but how can I check this is action from the pure? And I suppose it can be that I dislike and dislike, and how to check that it's from the mind, it's not mine.
Right.
How to build this?
Basically, the question is how to check that the actions that rise, whether they come from the self, from the source, or whether they are just mentally created for me. Learn to be honest. Unfortunately, we have to learn it. It should be natural to be honest, but somehow growing up in this world full of lies, we have become professional liars. And especially lying to ourselves all the time. You can never be so totally sure, but you can intend to be honest with yourself, to have an honest, good look at yourself, and intend to be honest. And even if you trick yourself again and again, if you are sincere about it, gradually you become aware, oh, I'm doing it again. I may think that what I'm doing now is so spiritual, but actually I'm still doing the same old story, same old stuff. If you sincerely intend to be honest and renew that intent again and again, gradually you become aware, deep down you know perfectly well where it's going along. In every situation, whether it's going right or left. But even if that knowledge is there on the surface, often we don't like so much what is clear, where it should go. And then we create all kinds of arguments for ourselves, justifying that it's perfectly right to do the opposite. But if you sincerely intend to be honest, then more and more you become aware when you're deceiving yourself. You cannot expect that I can give you a trick and from then on you always know exactly. But you can develop that honesty if you sincerely want to. And that sincerity comes, the more we look at ourselves, the more we become aware that I am creating my troubles. It's not the others, it's not the world out there, it's not the whole universe we make usually responsible for all the troubles that we have. But I am creating my own suffering. And if you are reasonably fed up with suffering, then that sincerity comes, that you want to find a way out. And with that sincerity to become honest with yourself comes. So just, you can every day, when you start the day, intend again new. I really want to be honest with myself. That is the main thing. To be honest with oneself. And if that intent is there, gradually you catch yourself earlier and earlier and earlier when you start to deceive yourself. To be in the present doesn't mean to be inactive. Of course, as long as you are here, as long as you appearing in a human form, somehow or other you have to spend your time. Something or other you have to do. Even if a lot of the time you're sitting quietly and doing nothing, you are doing that. So it's not that you are doing something, that you are playing a role. That is the problem. The problem is that we are not seeing that as a role. We are totally identifying with that person that is doing those things. And somehow you have to learn to live this in this world, to play this human role like an actor is playing the role on stage. That you can play your role perfectly well. Doesn't mean that you should not play your role well. Play your role beautifully, creatively. But like the actor on stage deep down knows perfectly well, I'm not that role. The curtain falls, that is finished. I'm still there. Like this is like a big theater, this world. We take the whole damn story much too serious. Instead of learning to be aware of that one which is capable of playing that role, we are totally obsessed with the role, with the details of the role, identifying with that role and think that's what I am. And there we are totally worried again all the time about the limitations that come along with it. And create that sense, that is me. There's a little circle inside, that's me, outside it's all the rest, and there is always that push and pull and fight. If you stop doing that, then you can play your role and don't create that sense of separation. That doesn't mean you are not more learning, still you are learning. Sometimes with your best intentions you make decisions that after that you become aware, it was not so fortunate, so what? You're wiser for the experience. It's not that once you are not more caught up in that me, I, me, mine personality, from then on all your actions are perfect. There is no such a thing like perfection in manifestation. It's always relative. There's always positive, negative. Sometimes people have this idea, and the tradition sometimes also says it, that once you are liberated, then all you're doing is perfect. You can only do the perfect thing. There is no such a thing like the perfect thing. So don't you worry so much whether you are right or wrong, whether your actions are good or not. Worry if you want to worry. No, don't worry. But just don't identify with that role you are playing. Then playfully go from moment to moment. You do whatever feels right at that moment. If later you learn, was not so fortunate, so what? The next time, most probably, you won't repeat it. This world is not as serious as we think it is. It's a magic show. Consciousness for sometimes dives into it, plays a bit crazy, gets richer for the experience and then gets out of it again. If you are aware that this is what is happening, then you can go about it playfully. Then you stop taking that role you are playing so serious. Then you stop being in anguish if you are not successful. Then you are stop being always worried whatever everybody thinks about you. Then life becomes what it is meant to be. Playful, joyous journey through this crazy time-space continuum, getting richer for the experience with every moment. So don't worry so much whether you're doing the right thing or not the right thing. Just try to bring your attention back to that sense of presence. And then live, and then act, and then play. And if you're finding yourself in difficult situations, then okay, then you deal with them and let them go, and you go ahead. At the end of the story, at the end of a lifetime, it doesn't matter how wonderful a life you have been living, whether you have made a big career, whether you were famous, whether nobody knew about you. What matters is whether you have been living your life consciously. If we go through life half asleep, there's very little intensity. Still, this is constructed like this. That's what this world is about. Consciousness comes in this world in a human form, and just simply to deal with every day, from day to day, is developing something very precious, is accumulating something very precious. So everybody who comes into this world goes out of this world richer. Even if you have not one single spiritual thought in your life, just simply going through your life, every morning you have to get up again. and then brush your teeth. And then go out and meet people. and all those tensions between pleasant, unpleasant, like, not like, all those tensions are there. They are accumulating something very precious that is there with you when you get out of this story. But if we go half asleep through our life, it's a very painful process. It's such a drag. You're just hitting your head left and right, and the only moments one has a bit intensity is in moments of pain, or in moments of great joy, or in moments of fear. And the rest of these are little peaks, and then we come down again, and then we sort of survive till the next peak. And it's a very slow process. But every time you take the trouble to bring the attention to the present, there is an intensity there. If you learn to live like this, you bring out of a lifetime maybe 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times what you bring out of it when you go half asleep through that life. So learn to live consciously, and in the end, when you get out of this life, it doesn't matter how much wealth you have accumulated, it doesn't matter how famous you have been, it doesn't matter whether you were living a good life or not so good life, or just a totally average life, but it matters tremendously whether you have been living your life consciously, whether you have learned to bring your attention back to that sense of presence, learn to get rooted in it and come back to it again and again and again until the attention sticks and you don't lose it anymore. So don't torture you too much thinking about every action you are doing. Is it now coming from my ego or is it coming from the real plug? Just bring your attention back to that which makes the experience possible, that sense of presence, that which you are touching when you say I, without thinking. When you say simply I, immediately your attention is touching something so totally familiar. We cannot possibly say we don't know it, but you don't know it like you know something. You know a watch, you know a dog, you know the neighbor. You don't know it like this because you know it by being. It's always there, but most of the time totally overlooked. So it's much more important that you learn to center here, into that. And then let the actions take their course. You can have your likes, you can have your dislikes. As long as it's not getting an obsession, it's not a problem. If you can arrange your life according to your likes, fine. If it doesn't work out, also fine. If you have that broad-heartedness, then it's not a problem. You can have your preferences. You like certain music better than other music. You like certain food better than other food. You like certain people better than other people. If you don't make those circumstances in the source of your happiness, if you don't make your well-being dependent on that, there is no problem in that. The more you become aware that you are the source of your happiness, that happiness we are looking for, you are the source of it. It's coming out of yourself. It's not found there, out in the world, in certain circumstances. If you are aware of that, then your preferences don't bind you. And if you can arrange the things according to your preferences, fine, nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, many times it will not work out, and then it's also fine. What is the last part? Can you talk a bit louder?
Can it be helpful
Yes?
to self-realization, or is it
to
just
self-
something that can bring positive things into life, or is it something that you might recommend? Like, you know how they say every word attracts, you know, your thinking attracts circumstances into life? Is it important to shift your thinking to become positive and optimistic?
Right.
Or can you just get by with regular thinking?
You don't have to become some kind of artificially positive clown. But I mean, if you have a positive attitude, then it's expansive. Always when you're negative, then you're always somehow worried about your own petty little personality. If you look in the world and you can see only evil and trouble and it's so terrible what's going, actually the people who are doing this, they are not worried about the world. They are worried about themselves having to be in that world. So that negative outlook has the tendency to make the circle smaller and smaller. And of course that creates suffering. Consciousness naturally is expansive. Consciousness wants to expand. And if we are locking it in a little bubble, we are creating pain. So having basically a positive outlook, you are better oriented. But in a way, you can be neutral. You don't have to artificially check yourself, am I now positive, am I not positive? Just be natural. And then you get naturally more expansive. And this will be looked at by others that you are positive. You don't have to somehow artificially be an optimist and always desperately believe that only the good can happen. Well, not in this world. There may be worlds like this, but not here. It's continuously a polarity that creates this tension of this world. That's creating the ground that we can grow so much.
I guess I'm asking about like situations that was very helpful. Situations like your leg hurts.
Yeah.
And your thinking is my leg is fine. My leg is fine.
Definitely that helps you heal. A body is absolutely amazing how it can repair itself. It's miraculous. But
Can this apply to other areas of life?
yes, but let's stick just a little moment with the body. If there is an imbalance in the body, and then somehow it gradually starts to manifest as disease. But then when we think, oh, I'm sick, and it's terrible, and oh, I'm sick, then of course it's getting worse and worse and worse. But if you sort of let it be, if you relax, and if it's easier for you to get to that state of relaxation by thinking, my body is healing, then certainly you're contributing a lot that the body can heal.
People have cured cancer in that way.
You can cure theoretically any disease like this. Practically there may be the weight of karma that will hold you back a little. But basically with persistence, with patience, any amount of karma can be surmounted. But for some it may be easier, and for some it may be more difficult, because there is old stuff still hanging on to you. But now the second question, can you extend it to other places of life? Of course. If you think now you are going to start something, and you are full of fear, and already think, anyhow, I'm not going to succeed, it's not going to happen, I can't do this. But then you try in spite of that, there is much more likely the outcome that you fail. But if you have a positive outlook, not a fear, not a terrible fixation, I have to succeed, but just, okay, I'm giving it my best, I'm giving it a try. I give it in a playful, joyous way, my creativity into it. Then in such a positive attitude, there's much more chance that whatever you are attempting brings something very beautiful, and something nice comes out of it. If you are always already sabotaging yourself, that anyhow, I know how it is with me, I can try what I want, I'm always going to fail. If you start like this, then you are bound to fail most of the time, reinforcing the idea that you always, anyhow, that you are not worth anything. In that sense, definitely, positive thinking is helping you a lot. You're giving something creative in the current that has a chance to manifest. And if you do the opposite, you're giving something negative, something destructive in the current that most probably sabotages whatever you are busy with. Negative thinking is sabotaging oneself all the time. Negative thinking is somehow expecting, but then the human mind is amazing, it's crazy. So many people, after having done that for some time and feeling that they are always a victim, somehow start to fall in love with that victim mood, and somehow find a masochistic pleasure in getting a confirmation all the time. In every new life situation, I'm a victim. And sabotage themselves all the time, that it's always going astray.
How would you bring that together with the perspective of that I'm not the doer? I mean, certainly at the human level and the personal, etc., our attitudes play a big part.
Mm.
But what about I'm not the doer and things are happening through me?
Right, the more you are natural, the more you are relaxed, the less you are at all thinking about being positive or negative. And even whether you are the doer or not. You are the doer is a concept. You are not the doer is also a concept. It may be helpful to hold on to the second concept to get rid of that fixation that me, I, a person, am the doer. But eventually you let go of both of them.
Life, we certainly impact our experience, but life is happening for our beingness.
Life is happening, and yet part of that divine will who is running this whole show is that consciousness manifest has its own creativity. So you have the possibility to bring your own beauty, your own creativity into it. It's not simply that you have to become a complete automaton. Life is happening. I mean, it's a good attitude to free yourself from the attachment, I have to do this, I have to do that, more to be relaxed and let things take their course a bit more.
And then, can you talk more about how karma comes into play with all of that?
Karma. Karma has nothing to do with you as a being. Here, now, there is no karma. Here, now, in the timelessness of existence, there is no karma. But karma is in the current of time and space. On the relative manifested level, there is that law of cause and effect. And that's what karma is about. You hit your hand, ow, it hurts. That's what karma is about. And you come in this world, you may have some baggage there, but it's not really for you as a being. If somebody is born, then we can make the horoscope of that person. And a skilled astrologer may foretell a whole life story that's going to come. And as long as we are not stopping ever and going through our life half asleep, then we may think I'm making decisions, I'm doing things all the time, but actually it's just that story that is bound to happen, that is unrolling itself. Karma is unrolling itself. But the moment you stop, the moment you step out, you bring your attention to the now. There something new and unpredictable and beautiful flows into that current. The more you live in the now, the less power karma has over you. Here, now, there is no karma. If your attention gets rooted, you are free of karma. You still may let your destiny run itself out, or you may decide, no, I'm not going down that alley again, and you're just giving a little notch, and then you let it go again. Karma is always talked about in context with destiny. And destiny is there as a baggage. It's there like a cloud. It's something bound to happen, possible to happen. But if we are not getting locked into that current of destiny, completely identifying all the time with that personal story that we are playing, and in that sense leaving out the karma and happily creating new karma again all the time, then that cloud of probability need not necessarily manifest. It loses its power over you.
So there's a quote, and I'm not going to get it right, by Ramana Maharshi, but it says that something to the effect that whatever is, according to the prarabdha karma,
Right.
whatever is going to happen will happen, So the best thing is to remain silent.
Right,
So can you give your
right.
interpretation of that?
I mean, that question is never going to be answered, and you can say it's just like that. It's much too alive, much too flexible that you could put it in a theory like this. Ramana often he talked to traditional Hindus, and in traditional Hinduism it has that teaching of karma. The karma is split up in prarabdha karma, in agami karma, in sanchita karma. and the prarabdha karma is your destiny, and it's fixed, and you can't change it. Although they build temples all the time to change your destiny. And then the agami karma is the karma you keep on creating. And then the traditional Vedantic view is you can't help it, the prarabdha karma, your destiny has to run out, but if you are not more identifying with it, you are not more creating agami karma. And that both is part of the sanchita karma, the whole store of karma, which they say from thousands and thousands of lifetimes you have plenty of it. It's not very beautiful full idea to think. You can get out of karma here now. And Ramana about karma and destiny, if you read Ramana, you see that one time he talked like this and one time he talked like that. He would talk to people the way he felt that that person is getting benefited most by what he says now. There is no final answer to destiny, free will, karma. You have every moment the possibility at least to attempt to bring your attention back. Whether you are making use of that possibility or not, that's up to you. How successful you are may not be in your hands, how much you are capable. But if you start to do that, gradually it's getting easier.
And perhaps that's where the end of that statement goes in terms of remaining silent and
Right.
yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to become a Mauni, never talk again. Doesn't mean you have to simply sit and meditate. If you want to do so, by all means do so. It's a good way to go about it, but one has to be a character like this. It has to be something one wants to do, and then it comes naturally. But if you would force yourself to just now not more do anything because you don't want to be the doer and simply sit and meditate, then it's becoming more destructive than helpful. Then if that is not the thing that naturally should be in your story, then you just force yourself, and eventually you may come to the point that you get so pissed off with the whole story that you throw it all away. That silence is to bring the attention to that silent ground. The whole story is turning around like mad, but the hub of it is not moving. It's always there. That's the silence he is talking about. That instead of being so totally obsessed with the details of your life and of the actions and the reactions, learn to turn the attention to that silent ground, to that which makes that whole madness possible. It's not a part-time job. It's extremely helpful if we have every day some time where we are doing nothing else. When we are not busy, when we can put your undivided attention in just being here conscious, being here alive, being here consciously conscious, in one way or another, and learn to dive into that and relax into that. But then, try to bring that attitude as good as you can in your daily activities. When you go for your job, when you live in your family, when you are with friends, whether you are alone or whether you are in a crowd, that the habitual way of functioning of some 7 billion people is to be completely absorbed in what we are thinking and doing, and the me, I, me, mine personality, and never bring it back to that sense of being. And so we may have been functioning like this for quite a time, and the habit is there, the momentum is there, and will pull our attention with force. So it's no wonder that even if you decide to look the other way, that not from one day to another this simply drops off. But we can consciously create the opposite momentum, that you start your day with the intention to remember to connect. As long as we don't remember, nothing can be done. But the moment you remember, you can connect. Or you can start a big story again and think, oh, how much time has passed and I didn't have a conscious moment, and there you are gone again in the story. Just learn to consequently, whenever you remember, at that moment, connect. In the midst of your sentence, in the midst of your action, whether you are alone or whether you are walking through a crowd. And even if you can consciously remain connected just a few seconds, those few seconds are very precious. And if we do that again and again and again and again, gradually that creates another momentum that eventually can overcome the momentum of the habit of always getting scattered all over the place. It's not really difficult, but it has to be done. It helps very much. It intensifies if we have every day some time where we are doing nothing else. Not busy. Just be. And then try to remember as good as you can in all your other activities also.